the arts, the remarkable fact has very often been noted that what we still think of as modern painting and modern music and modern poetry and the modern novel all developed, roughly speaking, simultaneously. They all got going in the early years of this century and first became fashionable in about the 1920s. And in all the arts, modernism has had some strikingly similar consequences. For instance, in each of the arts there was a turning away from the unself-conscious depiction of the world, or of experience, and a turning in on itself. Art actually became its own subject matter. That's to say, it became familiar for, say, the subject of a poem to be the process of writing a poem, or the difficulties of being a poet. Ditto with plays and novels, and later even films. Music and painting, too, in their different ways, exhibited the same concern with their own innards, and very often turned them into their own subject matter, and put them on display. In all the arts, too, and perhaps this is related to the last point, there was a disintegration of traditional forms, a tendency to build new structures and to build them out of small, carefully shaped fragments. I'm emphasizing this because all this is true, and with remarkable exactitude, of philosophy as well, a fact which illustrates how deeply embedded the development of philosophy is in the cultural matrix of its time. Modern philosophy can be said to have started in 1903 with the breakaway of G.E. Moore and Bertrand Russell from the idealism which had dominated the 19th century, and then, after the pioneering work of Russell, followed by that of Wittgenstein, who was a pupil of Russell, there developed in the 1920s in Austria the first fully fledged school devoted to the new philosophy, a school which was known as the Vienna Circle. To the philosophy they developed, they gave the name logical positivism, and for a long time afterwards that label was attached to modern philosophy generally, in the minds of very many laymen. The person who introduced logical positivism into England was A.J. Ayer, and his is the name that has been chiefly associated with it ever since in this country. He did so in a still very famous and widely read book called Language, Truth and Logic, which he published in January 1936 when he was only 25. It's very much a young man's book, explosively written, and it's still the best short guide to the central doctrines of logical positivism. The aggressiveness of that book was typical of the movement as a whole. They self-consciously organized themselves like a political party, with regular meetings and publications and international congresses, and they propagated their doctrines with missionary zeal. If we look at the question of what they were fighting against so passionately and why, I think that will provide us with the clearest starting point for our consideration of logical positivism. And then we'll be in a better position to go on and examine their own doctrines. Professor Ayer, what was it that the logical positivists were campaigning so passionately against?
Well, primarily they were against metaphysics, what they call metaphysics, and that was any suggestion that there might be a world going beyond the ordinary world of science and common sense, the world revealed to us by our senses. Already Kant, at the end of the 18th century, had said it was impossible to have any knowledge of anything that wasn't within the realm of possible sense experience, but these Viennese people went further. They said that any statement that wasn't either a formal statement, like a statement of logic or mathematics, or one that was empirically testable, was simply nonsensical.